Hello everyone, and welcome to the episode number 60 of Fluent English with Podcast. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Alan. We're both passionate about helping people learn English, and we believe there's no better way to do that than through conversation.
Exactly. This podcast is designed for anyone who wants to improve their listening and speaking skills in a fun and engaging way.
Whether you're a complete beginner or you're looking to take your English to the next level, we've got something for you.
We'll be having conversations about everyday topics, learning new vocabulary words along the way, and providing practical tips to help you speak English more fluently.
So, if you're ready to take your English learning journey to the next level, subscribe to our channel.
Now, on to today's exciting topic. We're going to be talking about how to train your brain to think in English.
This might sound challenging, but trust us, it's totally achievable. By the end of this episode, you'll have some great tips and tricks to get you started.
Before we dive in, let's listen to some words you might hear throughout the episode.
Think. This means to use your mind to come up with ideas.
Brain. This is the part of your body that controls your thoughts and actions.
Train. This means to teach someone how to do something specific.
Habit. This is something you do regularly without even thinking about it. So why is it so beneficial to train your brain to think in English?
Well, Sophie, there are many advantages. For one, it can help you speak English more fluently. When you don't have to translate everything in your head first, you can express yourself more quickly and naturally.
Absolutely. It also improves your listening comprehension. When you're used to thinking in English, you'll be able to follow conversations more easily, even if they're spoken quickly. Plus, it boosts your vocabulary building. The more you think in English, the more words you'll be exposed to, and the better you'll understand how to use them in different contexts. It even reduces that feeling of frustration when you can't find the right word.
That's right, Sophie. Thinking in English becomes a habit, and soon you'll find yourself forming sentences and expressing yourself with ease.
Now, to help us understand how to achieve this, we'll be joined by our first guest expert, Miss Sophie Miller, a highly experienced English teacher. Welcome, Miss Miller. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sophie. I'm excited to talk about this important topic.
So, Miss Miller, can you give our listeners some practical tips on how to train their brains to think in English?
Absolutely. Here are 3 simple things you can start doing today. Label your surroundings in English. As you go about your day, try naming objects in English. For example, instead of thinking chair in your native language, say chair in your head. This will help connect the English word with the object itself. Think in English during your daily routine. While you're brushing your teeth, for instance, think about the steps you're taking in English. I'm getting the toothbrush. Now I'm putting on toothpaste. This internal dialogue helps build those English thought patterns. Start a small journal in English. Write down a few sentences each day about your thoughts, feelings, or plans. This doesn't have to be a masterpiece, just a way to practice forming sentences in English.
Those are fantastic tips, Miss Miller. They sound so easy to implement.
Exactly. And remember, even small steps can lead to big improvements over time.
Absolutely. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen overnight. Just keep practicing, and you'll gradually find yourself thinking in English more and more.
Thank you so much for your valuable insights, Miss Miller.
You're welcome. Keep up the great work with the podcast.
Thank you, Miss Miller. Before we dive into more tips, let's hear from one of our listeners, David, who shared his experience with training his brain to think in English.
David, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with learning English?
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I started learning English a few years ago, but I always struggled to speak fluently. I would translate everything in my head, which made it slow and frustrating. It felt like there was a big wall between me and expressing myself naturally.
I understand, David. That's a common challenge. Many learners get stuck in that translation loop. So what did you do to improve?
Well, I heard about the idea of thinking in English, and I decided to give it a try. At first, it felt strange. It was like there were 2 voices in my head. My native language and English, but I stuck with MS. Miller's tips, like labeling things in my apartment and thinking through my daily routine in English.
That's great. Did you see any results?
Absolutely. It wasn't easy at first, There were times when I forgot the English word for something simple, and it was tempting to just switch back to my native language. But the more I practiced, the easier it became. Now, I find myself thinking in English more and more often, even when I'm not actively trying to learn. It's definitely helped me speak more fluently and understand conversations better. Conversations that used to feel overwhelming now seem more manageable.
That's fantastic progress, David. Thanks for sharing your story in such detail. It's inspiring for our listeners to hear a real-life example of how this technique can work.
You're welcome. I just wanted to show that anyone can train their brain to think in English with a little effort and perseverance. It may not happen overnight, but with consistent practice, you'll be surprised at how much progress you can make.
Thanks again, David. We wish you all the best in your continued English learning journey. And to our listeners, remember, David's story is a great example of how small, daily steps can lead to big improvements over time. So, stay tuned as we explore some fun activities you can do to boost your English thinking skills.
Now we'll explore some fun activities you can do to boost your English thinking skills.
Absolutely. Remember, the key is to make it enjoyable so you'll stick with it. Here are a few ideas.
Change your phone's language settings to English. This will force you to think in English as you navigate menus and apps.
Watch movies and TV shows in English with subtitles. Start with subtitles in your native language, then gradually transition to English subtitles. This will help you connect spoken English with written English.
Challenge yourself to think in English during your hobbies. Do you love cooking? Try following recipes in English. Are you a music lover? Listen to English songs and try to understand the lyrics.
Play games in English. Board games, video games, even online puzzles, there are many options available. Playing games can be a fun way to learn new vocabulary and practice using English in a relaxed setting.
Describe your dreams in English. When you wake up, try to write down or tell someone about your dreams in English. This can be a creative way to free associate and practice forming sentences.
These are all fantastic ideas, Alan.
That's right, Sophie. The important thing is to find activities you enjoy and that fit your interests.
Exactly. By incorporating English into your daily activities, you'll be training your brain to think in English without even realizing it.
Now we'll hear from two of our listeners, Nadia and Liam, who are sharing their experiences with training their brains to think in English.
Fantastic. Let's hear what they have to say.
Hi everyone, I'm Nadia.
And I'm Liam. We're both calling in to talk about how we've been working on thinking in English.
Absolutely. For a long time, I struggled to speak English fluently because I would translate everything in my head first. It was slow and frustrating.
I hear you, Nadia. That was definitely a challenge for me too. But then I heard about the idea of thinking in English, and I decided to give it a try.
Me too. I started small, like labeling objects in my apartment in English. Door, table, chair, things like that.
That's a great way to start. I also started describing my daily routine in English in my head. I'm getting dressed now. Next, I'm going to make breakfast.
Oh, that's clever. I actually started keeping a small journal in English. Just a few sentences each day about my thoughts or plans.
A journal is a fantastic idea. It helps you practice forming sentences and using vocabulary in a more creative way.
Absolutely. It wasn't easy at first, but the more I practiced, the easier it became. Now, I find myself thinking in English more and more often, even when I'm not actively trying to learn.
Me too, Nadia. It's definitely helped me speak more fluently and understand conversations better. It feels like there's less of a barrier between me and expressing myself in English.
Exactly. And the best part is, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just small steps can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing your experience, Nadia.
Thanks, Liam. And to all the listeners out there, don't be discouraged if it takes time. Just keep practicing, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you start thinking in English.
Thanks, Nadia and Liam. That was a very inspiring conversation.
Absolutely. It's great to hear how different people are approaching this challenge and finding success.
Remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself and celebrate your progress no matter how small.
Here are some final words of encouragement.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning a new language. The key is to learn from them and keep moving forward.
Focus on progress, not perfection. Even small improvements can make a big difference in your fluency.
Find a language buddy or join an online community. Connecting with other learners can be a great source of motivation and support.
Most importantly, have fun. Learning English should be an enjoyable experience.
Those are all fantastic points, Sophie. Remember, with a little effort and a positive attitude, you can train your brain to think in English and unlock a world of new opportunities.
We'd love to hear from you. Share your experiences and any questions you have in the comments section below this episode.
And don't forget to subscribe to Fluent English with Podcast for more tips, tricks, and conversations to help you on your English learning journey.
Thanks for joining us today. Until next time, happy learning.